I mean, it's clear that there could be another election, could be anything
There
happening.
could
So
well be another election. I think most people will be polishing the posters.
Serious.
Yeah. But the real danger of another election is that Sinn Fein will run more candidates and get more seats then and do better. But
hopefully hopefully it goes down. It's like 2017, and then 2 years later, the next one they kick them out again. But yeah, anyway, they're bad news, Sinn Fein. So.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Political Dregs. We are joined by Andrew again. I am Calvin. With me is Joel, Hamish and Amir. And we're going to talk about Ireland and the election that's just taken place. Right. What is the Lord Lieutenant saying about this?
Well, Leo Varadkar's been quite quiet about it. I think he's kind of settled for opposition. He realises he's been rejected. He doesn't want to be seen to be associated with Sinn Fein. He's ruled out a coalition with Sinn Fein. This was the first time in 100 years that neither Fine Gael nor Fianna Fáil topped the poll. Like, this is the first time ever that Sinn Fein has topped the poll. They obviously didn't run enough candidates to get enough seats, so they only have 37 seats. But it is very worrying for anyone. 700 million euro was wiped off the shares of AIB and Bank of Ireland on foot of the result. People are very worried about what the prospect of Sinn Fein in government.
Why are so many Irish people voting for terrorists? What's happened?
Well, it's only, I suppose I shouldn't really just dismiss it as it's only 25%, because it's 25% too much. But the Northern Ireland Brexit, that is not why people are voting for Sinn Fein in this election. They're voting for Sinn Fein on domestic issues. We have a housing crisis. You have people very good, educated young graduates having to pay up to $1,000 to rent a bedsit. People are desperate, and they were desperate for change. And there was always a danger that when Sinn Fein got rid of Gerry Adams and got an attractive new leader in Mary Lou, that they would become more appealing to the middle class.
Have they got rid of him though? He's not gone away, has he really?
Shadowy figure, or not so shadowy, throughout this whole process, and he's still a top dog in Sinn Fein.
Is he still a TD?
No, he retired, but he was there today with all their new team.
So
he's involved.
I'm interested about these domestic issues, actually, because we have a housing crisis here in London. So what is the housing crisis in the Republic of Ireland? Can you explain more?
Well, essentially, it's a case of supply and demand. There's a lot of demand and not enough supply, and it kind of goes back to the financial crisis 10 years ago. A lot of construction workers went to Australia. We don't have the workers. We don't have the houses. We have very high rents. It's very unaffordable for young people. You have people in their 30s still living at home, not able to move out, not able to afford rent, trying to save to get on the ladder.
Sounds familiar.
But I mean, you're in the EU. Why don't you have construction workers, etc.?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of our construction workers now would be Polish and Romanian, but it still isn't enough to. Like there was no house building for about 10 years in Ireland, so it's we're playing catch up now, and to the detriment of so many people, and that is why people are turning to Sinn Fein, because it's the same way that people in the United States were drawn to kind of the populist messages of Trump. It's kind of similar to some extent.
Yeah, literally. Well, they raised money for them in Boston plenty of times, and in New York, as did Trump.
But
I think
how are none of the other parties addressing these issues, though?
Well, Fine Gael, which was the party in government, would be the main centre-right party led by Leo Varadkar. They introduced rent controls, which
not good,
which haven't exactly helped solve the problem.
Well, it's not exactly centre-right, is it?
No, you're having the exact same discussions with the Tory party right now, and its decisions to spend instead of lower tax, I think there's a crisis right now in support for the centre-right in Ireland, and Sinn Féin have been the main benefactor of that.
One of the things I presume that I would vote Fine Gael, although I've never really understood the difference between Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, but whatever. Most Tories were quite excited when Varadkar was elected and became Taoiseach, because he seemed a bit more actually centre-right and everything. He really blotted his copybook, I think, with a lot of people on the right in the UK because of his Brexit position. I mean, he's sort of going around sort of whoring out himself in Ireland as the sort of
I am the EU.
sacrificial lamb, whatever the EU wanted to do. And, actually, I have to say, although I realise that, the government of the Republic is now going to be probably something I don't like, as opposed to something that, more ideologically towards, my own view. I kind of have a perverse pleasure and Schadenfreude at seeing how he has fallen, because while he was traipsing around the chancelleries of Europe bitching about the British, he was actually ignoring his own problems and his own people, and he got the kicking he deserved, as far as I can say.
Yeah, you've nailed it. I mean, Brexit was only an issue for 1% of voters, but his obsession with kind of his international standing, as opposed to rolling up sleeves and dealing with the domestic issues, is now coming back to bite him. And look, he is probably the most centre-right Taoiseach we ever had, but he is a Euro-federalist as well. Like that is his whole political identity. When he was a student at Trinity College, he was involved in European politics. He was the president of the youth of the European People's Party. So, his focus has always been Europe. He's not.
It's very much, for me, Fine Gael are very much a sort of Osborne style, selling everything off selling off the family silver. Just everything is about what makes you a bit richer, or what makes the country richer economically in terms of money. And maybe Fine Gael would have a little bit more of a focus on identity of the country.
So I think, just to tug on that bit, because I'm ignorant of this, how would you compare Fianna Fáil in that sense then?
Fianna Fáil are more kind of like the. I think people drew comparisons to Fianna Fáil recent election.
Say that again. I missed that.
People actually drew comparisons to Fianna Fáil and the Tory party in the recent election in December 2019, promising public spending, patriotism. That was the old Fianna Fáil of 1932 and 1977. But today, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, one side, two coins. There's very little that separates them today.
Two cheeks from the same arse.
So, so are you saying that there's probably going to be a FGFF, I can't pronounce those words, coalition, and then SF are going to be like sidelined? Or...
You can say Sinn Fein.
Yeah, I can, but I choose not to. Like, Sinn Fein.
I remember the old days when we used to say Sinn Fein IRA.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I still say that.
What did you do?
Oh, wait, say that again, Andrew. Sorry.
No, look, I think, to be fair to Fianna Fáil, they had a meeting today of their new TDs, and the new TDs categorically ruled out a coalition with Sinn Féin.
Sound.
Consistently throughout the campaign, we're not going in with Sinn Féin. A lot of people are very concerned about the prospect of a Sinn Féin government, but there's a high-risk strategy of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil going in together and isolating Sinn Féin, because people are then wondering, will they just do better in the next election if they're being seen, if it strikes people that there's an establishment plot to keep them out of power.
Yeah, so be it. Though I think you got to draw the line, and Sinn Féin are beyond the pale.
I would agree.
Literally less than 10 years ago, the members of the party are beating boys to death, and
Paul Quinn,
yeah, there are some horrendous stories. I mean, which they're not even begun to address. So
no,
yes.
They glorify their participation in troubles. It's not back on it like Germany looks back on, say, the Holocaust and the Nazism and say, look, we're very sorry about this. Sinn Féin reps are still going to IRA commemorations. They're still singing songs like "Come Out You Black and Tans." They're still using slogans. There's no contrition whatsoever.
Right. And this is the only party in Europe that has an armed wing. I mean, this is this is crazy stuff. And as a I find it very, very worrying. And the net result of it, I agree. There's a bit of Schadenfreude about the way that Varadkar behaved towards the UK, his arrogance.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. Absolutely. Varadkar is very smarmy, very He rubs people up the wrong way, you know.
Definitely. But the net result of this will not be good for the UK. Having Sinn Fein in government certainly will never, ever be good for the UK.
Andrew, Sinn Fein won in Northern Ireland, and they've now, in a way, won in Republic of Ireland.
In what sense did they win in Northern Ireland?
Well, they're
the largest nationalist party, so they have to be deputy.
Of course, they're the largest nationalist party. I completely accept that, but
they didn't win overall. It was a draw, a bloody draw.
Okay, so anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is, regardless of...
Don't let facts get in your way, Amir.
Yeah, whatever. Are Sinn Féin going to somehow block the deal that's scheduled for the end of this year between the UK and the EU in order to push through some kind of hard border so that they can collapse the Good Friday Agreement, and maybe it's the advent of unification? I don't know.
Well,
Tell me.
It's a very interesting question, because Sinn Féin has more positions on Europe and Brexit than the Kama Sutra. You know, they traditionally, when there was a European Union referendum in Ireland on the treaties, Sinn Féin always advocated a no vote. You know, the veteran Labour politician Tony Benn being invited to speak at Sinn Féin events, campaigning for a no vote for the Lisbon Treaty. They have been always...
Jeremy Corbyn, of course.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. There you go.
Yeah.
They have always been a very Eurosceptic party, but all of a sudden, when you had the Brexit referendum and you suddenly had a situation where the DUP were supporting Leave, the arch enemy, Sinn Féin, of course, then takes a Remain position. So, you know, they say that they're going to make the European Union suddenly take a stance on the issue of Irish unity, similar to the stance that the European Union presently have on Cypriot unity. But of course, the context is very different. Cyprus, the north of Cyprus, is occupied by Turkey. You know, arguably, you know, Northern Ireland has been in the United Kingdom before the Irish state even existed.
Yep.
So
but of course they characterise this as a British occupation, don't they?
Exactly.
Well, there's never been a united Ireland in that sense, has there? So, yeah, I mean, I would like to see the EU, personally, I would like to see the EU step in and take a view, should Sinn Féin enter the Irish government, and whether that is compatible with European values.
It's hypocritical that they haven't, because obviously they intervened when Poland elected PIS.
Indeed.
They intervened when the Austrian centre-right went in with the Freedom Party, which
Indeed.
former Nazis. So I am surprised that there's been no way in here, but I think that confirms a lot of suspicions that people would have of the European Union. And, you know,
well, no, I think it's right that they haven't done that, because, frankly, if the Irish want to be governed by Sinn Féin, then that's the matter for the Irish. I don't see the European Union taking a policy position on being supportive of Irish reunification, because it's not in their member states' interests. I mean, Spain is an obvious example.
That if the people in Northern Ireland do vote for unity, Northern Ireland will automatically be back in the EU. But that's not advocating that. That's just procedural.
Look.
Well, yes, because they're joining a member state. I mean, that's you know, anyone with sort of half a brain cell could tell you that. Although I've always been intrigued by the arrangements for a border poll, because correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I understand the Good Friday Agreement, there has to be a vote to join the Republic in
Northern Ireland.
In Northern Ireland, but also in Ireland there needs to be a vote.
Both, yeah, it'll have to be a referendum on both sides.
So there is presumably, although it may be unlikely, but there is theoretically a possibility that the Northern Irish vote to join the Irish Republic, and the Irish Republic say no. And I wonder what happens in that situation.
That's entirely plausible. We haven't really looked at that, because everything has been in hypotheticals in relation to a border poll. But you could have a situation, where one jurisdiction votes for unity and the other jurisdiction rejects unity. That could happen, but you know, we've never had to look at that.
It depends what comes first.
It'd be fascinating, wouldn't it?
If the Northern Irish vote for reunification, there's no way that the Republic of Ireland are going to say no. They will just jump on board.
I agree, but there are, and I would say it's Fine Gael voters more so than anyone else down here, that would be very concerned about the economic implications of unity, what it would mean for GDP per person, We do, like the Treasury in London subvents Northern Ireland by about £15 billion. Like we're going to have to start paying for Northern Ireland if we take it on. So there's a lot of concern about that.
Yeah.
Mary Lou,
You're welcome.
Look, there is another way to unite Ireland. We could always welcome Ireland back into the kingdom.
No.
Well, look, Trump obviously uses language like, the Mexicans going to pay for the wall. Mary Lewis turned around yesterday and said, "Oh, sure, the British are going to give us 12 billion if we vote for unity." There's this real, we'll have our unity and the British will pay for it kind of attitude.
Yeah,
That's such a pathetic, especially from Sinn Fein. It's such a pathetic position to take, because it's like you want your unity in political unity because the British are awful and evil and occupiers. Oh, but you'll suck their cock for the money.
typical. Well, this is what we need Rishi Sunak as Chancellor to stand up to and say, absolutely no way.
Andrew, so let me ask you another question, since you're our resident expert here. If no deal is struck by the end of this year, and there is a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic, what's going to happen?
Well,
reject the premise of the question, Andrew. There will not be a hard border.
There won't. I think I think there will be a deal, because if you
obviously we all think there's going to be a deal, but
I don't like to really go into that topic for the simple reason that I think we give too much credence to what Sinn Fein will or won't do. And when I mean Sinn Fein, I mean the more kind of clandestine part of Sinn Fein. Like, would there be violence? And if there was going to be violence, would we listen to the threats of violence as a kind of...
Exactly. Absolutely.
I think you're really playing with fire when you talk about the border, and whether, the IRA will start bombing targets again along that border. It's
first of all, there's absolutely no way that under any circumstances ever that there will be a hard border, because even if there was no deal, the British and the Irish don't want to have a hard border between Ulster and the Republic, so there isn't going to be one unless Ursula von der Leyen and the Commission want to come over and build it themselves. There ain't going to be one. Second of all, absolutely right. Sorry, hang on, just one second.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Second of all, absolutely right that we shouldn't be saying, oh, well, we were going to be cowed by the threats of terrorists. And third of all, if you actually listen to the terrorists, and Channel 4 interviewed a member of the provisional IRA about this recently, and his attitude was, we fucking hate the British anyway, we're going to attack them anyway. It doesn't really matter if they put a fucking border out there. We're still a fucking IRA.
There is dissident activity. There was a protest today in outside the court where Lyra McKee's murderer was charged. So there are people out there that don't believe in the peace process, that don't believe, there is a dissident element out there. And to be fair, and I know that this might sound absolutely bizarre to you all, but there is an element that Gerry Adams himself couldn't even control. So these people, will and could attack, and they're not
going to just do it because there's a fucking border or hard border. If they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it anyway.
Well, I mean, in 2009, we had the shooting dead of 2 soldiers in Antrim. That was 9 years after 10 years after the peace process. So, there are isolated incidents already, yes, where and Lyra McKee as well, where they struck and they have taken people's lives.
I actually find it really objectionable the way that Remainers like Amir and others have used the threat.
I'm not using the threat.
Yes, you absolutely are using the threat.
I'm not using the threat. It's a question.
You're 100% using
it's
the
threat.
It's
an open-ended question, which was answered.
No. Not just now, but just generally over the past 3.5 years, using the threat of IRA, terrorist violence.
3 years ago, I was fully behind Theresa May's whatever.
There is a security...
Have been using that threat as a way to stop a perfectly, legitimate vote to leave the European Union, which is supporting the United Kingdom. And the idea, it's a bit like saying, oh well, we can't have Pakistan because of the Hindu nationalists will cause terrorism. We do not bend to the whims of terrorism, not in Ireland, not in Europe, anywhere.
Look,
No,
we're on the same page, dude. You're kind of going off topic
the
and off
reality is,
tangent.
the point was that yes, we don't bow to terrorism, but anything to do with the border was unnecessarily antagonizing the situation.
Fair comment.
There.
Yeah, well,
The reason that we wanted to essentially neutralize that issue with a softer Brexit was because that border issue had been so poisonous over the years. Yes, it's not very nice to link it to violence, but it's just a reality.
But not just there's a cohort of voters in Northern Ireland today that claim that they neither identify with Ireland or with Britain, but with both, and they would be the Alliance Party, and their main attack line is not necessarily violence, but that Northern Ireland voted Remain, and they would pivot to more towards Europe. Now, how that all plays out, that Brexit now has already happened, and those debates are tired old debates now at this stage, is going to be really interesting. But Micheál Martin, who was the leader of the opposition, and he could potentially be Taoiseach yet, he said on BBC Newsnight, when asked, is alignment a red line for his Irish government, he said it would be. So I think most of the parties in Ireland, they agreed in Brexit. They're probably going to agree on a strategy for the withdrawal agreement too. They probably want alignment as much as possible. Or not the withdrawal agreement, but the actual future trading relationship.
Are one of these 10 new free ports, are one of them going to be in Ireland, or two, potentially?
Northern Ireland? The Prime Minister said it's up to...
We've lost you.
Oh.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry. We'll have to wait and see. The Prime Minister has said that the decision on free ports will be decided by an independent commission.
Yeah, the consultations.
Well.
But I think that's been an interesting conversation about Ireland, and I want to thank Andrew Ralph once again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah. And hopefully the next time I'm on the show, there won't be a Sinn Fein government, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yes,
it took 70 days last time. You think it's going to be done sooner?
I think the horse trading will go on until Easter, middle of April, and then we'll really see heads grinded together around the table. I'd say it'll be Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin.
Well, we avoided the nightmare of a Sinn Féin government here under Jeremy Corbyn, so we hope that you avoid that as well in Ireland.
A good kind of point. If Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil go in together, it's kind of like the British equivalent of the Tories and the SNP going in together to keep Corbyn out. It's that kind of...
SNP.
And actually, just on the SNP, they've been very quiet about the Irish election victory. I would have thought they would have made more political capital.
Well, they've got their own problems, dude. They've got what is it?
We're doing more on the SNP. Don't worry, we're going to have
finance minister. What happened to him? He was texting 16.
And on that note, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and listen to us on Spotify, on iTunes, and we're everywhere. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
So shall we say hello to some friends of the show? It's everyone's favourite segment because
Hi, friends. Hi, friends.
Any friends? This is the moment where we say hello to people who watch us, who leave comments. If you want a shout out on the show, leave us a comment. Could be amusing, could be sincere, could be abusive, frankly. We'll read them out and you get a little shout out on our little show.
Yes, oh, sorry, Joel.
No. Well, one was for Lord Wolf, whether he thought that, I know he's been concerned that we've been a bit too serious, but the reality is we live in serious times.
Who's Lord Wolf?
Lord Albie Wolf. Lord Thurlow.
No, yeah, Lord Wolf was the Lord Chief Justice, I think. He's
a friend of the show as well. How do
he wrote the civil procedure rules. So there's a shout out to Lord Wolf for doing the CPR. Thanks very much.
I want to give a shout out to Spoon, that's 5PO0N, or Solomon, who did an interview with me on his YouTube channel recently. So.
Oh,
you do
I know Spoon. So shout out to Geordie B, just a 23-year-old podcaster who sent us a message, said, "Hey guys, your podcast is great. And your passion for politics I have never seen in many people, apart from myself, LMAO."
Sorry.
Go on.
Well, I'd just like to say, obviously, we've got all our traditional friends, including Lord Wolf, apparently, and Lord Thurlow from East Anglia University. But I've got a Twitter comment that I enjoyed from @JimmyJ101. This is a silly interpretation of what's happening, Amir. You don't need any context because it's applicable to everything he says.
Wow.
So you could just say it's at Jimmy. Whenever Amir speaks, that's an at Jimmy.
Yeah.
That's completely
Brilliant.
unfair.